Good evening. The time is now 7 p.m. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, December 9th, 2024 will please come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Heidi Cater is absent. Sheila Pryor, present. Sarah Johansson,
Here.
Horace Bende,
Here.
Valentina Ayers,
Here.
Dan Ginestra,
Here.
Milan Sahoni,
Present.
Chase Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Director Kader is unable to attend this evening's meeting because of a serious situation with her mother. She has asked for people to keep the family in their thoughts. If you wish to speak during the audience opportunity to address the board, please fill out a form placed at the back of the room and hand it over to our district admin assistant, Amy, sitting to my right. All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. The consent agenda items are listed in the materials. The recommended action is to approve the agenda and the consent agenda items. Is there a motion?
I so move.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote?
Yes, I will. Hold on one second.
Okay, take your time.
Sorry. Valentina Ayers,
Yes.
Dan Ginestra,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Horace Bende,
Yes.
Sheila Pryor, yes. Heidi Cater is absent. Milan Sahoni.
Yes, we have an agenda. Thank you, Sheila. Please note that our agenda this evening is slightly different from the one we have followed in past meetings this year. Prior to the reports from organizations, there will be an annual Truth in Taxation presentation, which will be followed by public comments on Truth in Taxation. I will mention guidelines for the public comments when we get there. So for now, the next item on our agenda is the annual Truth in Taxation presented by Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Scott Lesage.
All right. Thank you, Board Chair Sahoni, board members, Superintendent Anderson, and the community. School districts are required to meet the truth in taxation requirements for taxes payable in 2025. While school districts are no longer required to hold a separate truth in taxation hearing, they are required to discuss the payable 2025 tax levy in the current year budget at the regularly scheduled school board meeting, which we're doing tonight. All right, I know I am known for not short presentations. I think when you probably saw this and saw, I think there's 60 or 61 slides in there. I did cut it down, but we won't be going through each slide individually. The presentation was put together in a manner that it was to be kind of instructional tool for the public as well, just to create more transparency because this is a really complex process. So we're just including a lot of information and detail. We won't spend a time on every slide. And you'll notice board members and maybe even the community from past presentations, there's some duplication of slides, which I traditionally do in a lot of them because they're very applicable to the situation. So other thing just to note that I also touch base with the finance committee of the board on this. This is the second part of the process. If you recall back on September 23rd, I came to the board with the preliminary levy presentation that the board approved that night. This is the second part of that, and then later on in the meeting would be the certification of the levy, and that would be the third part. So I just wanted to make sure I added that, and then I would also tell you, which we predicted the night of the 23rd of September, that when the board approved to the maximum, none of the numbers have changed since then. So numbers are exactly the same, percentages exactly the same. All right, next slide. All right, so just getting into the requirements of the meeting. Basically, As I mentioned when I was introducing it, it has to be a public meeting. It needs to be between November 25th and December 30th at 6 p.m. or later. It must be part of the regularly scheduled meeting. It must allow for public comment and may adopt the final levy at the same meeting, and that's what I had mentioned we'll be doing tonight. At the presentation, we'll be going through the current year budget and proposed property tax levy. Ooh, does that work? All right. Perfect. All right, so this is just a quick look at our agenda and what we'll be covering tonight. So I've provided some background information on school funding in here. We'll go over the district's budget from FY 24-25 that was approved by the board in June. We'll go over the district's proposed tax levy for payable 2025 and then public comment. The objective of this slide is just to show essentially that the Minnesota legislature pretty much dictates how schools are funded, and it just walks through that. I won't read it word for word, but it's in the presentation for your review. So as you can see, the district is limited on what we can actually do or levy amounts as the state and the legislature determine these. Outside of what they set, they do authorize school boards to submit referendas for operating and capital needs, which the district does both of those. And the district does have an operating referendum. The first time this can be reviewed is coming up in July 2025, and then the district does have the two capital levies going. But this just kind of highlights that the state sets a lot of these, and schools basically just kind of follow what we're able to do here. This is a slide that I include. This is kind of a big topic. We've touched on this at several board presentations, but this just shows the challenges that schools are in, especially as of late with inflation and the different impacts from it. This is a more recent slide. So the one on here is from June 2024 inflation estimates. Prior stuff that you'll see in a few slides is based on 2023. That's because that came from a presentation in June before this was known. But this really highlights the impact it has on schools. So despite the fact, which we were appreciative of the dollars that the legislature gave in the 23 session in the spring, we still are way underneath where we should be just to keep up with inflation. You'll see in a couple slides the impact that has even on an annual basis. So this just kind of highlights we're at 7281 in the current year. We should be at 8645 just to keep pace with what's going on. So we are tasked with operating school districts, providing for students and families, our community, and our staff. And that becomes a big challenge as we are faced with this. This just shows, obviously, the first year of the legislative package was 4%. We are already back down to 2%. As we all know, because we all have personal bills and pay them, nothing is just 2%. So it just poses that additional challenge. So I just put this in here just to highlight. This is the slide that you'll recognize from the June board presentation when the board approved the budget at that time. This goes back to what I had mentioned. This is from a June 2023 estimate. So if you see that number of 8637, it differs a few dollars from the first slide. But this just goes to highlight. So if you're following kind of on the top left there, you're seeing that difference between the 8637 on this slide and the 7281, which is our per pupil allowance on our state aid. That difference is 1356. While it might not seem like a big difference, when you factor in, when you take our estimated projected enrollment that we had in June at the 12,684, multiply it by the current state aid per pupil, and it comes to just over 92 million. Now you take that same 12,684, multiply it by the 8637 if inflation was there, and you have 109 million. So just the simple math below that, we'd have an additional $17.2 million inside of our budget if we kept up with inflation. We've talked about this quite a bit, but the special ed funding, we were extremely grateful for the legislature reducing the cross subsidy for districts. But the one factor that really wasn't thought about was the fact that we continue to see increased needs and increased costs. We have staff shortages as well. So while we're grateful for that, we've seen our costs increase pretty substantially. Just our district alone, we're projecting spending about $23.5 million on state special ed this year. That's up almost $5 million over the last 4 years. All right, now we'll get into the preliminary budget for 2024-25. And again, this was approved at the June 24th special school board meeting. So just to touch base on some historical, important recent historical budget impact factors that really impacted the district over the last several years. This just starts to talk about, I know it seems like, you know, the pandemic, it was a few years ago now, but it had an absolutely tremendous impact on our district. And I'll get into that a little bit, but it really hurt our finances and our budget tremendously. This is because we're a people-driven revenue system. So you can see the trajectory of growth the district was experiencing, and we just used a cutoff date of 10/1 because that's kind of the official count. Obviously, by year end, we have a different number, and then there's an aggregated average, which is the ADM for the school. But you can see that dip. So you can see we are growing. And in this, because we use 10/1, it's a little bit different than how the year ended. But when you look at that year, really, we were projecting to grow by about 250 on average. And this doesn't show it, but in the one that we've shown before that shows the ADM, we lost 200 kids. So you had a swing of 450, which just doing the math real quick is right around $4.5–5 million. And then just that trajectory, it's kind of like a savings account. Once you pull that out, you're not going to continue to grow at the pace that you thought you were. And if we recall during the pandemic, just the timing of the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainties. So it was first going to be a couple weeks, and then it turned into a couple months. And then in July, we were told to potentially prepare for a hybrid model, and both in person and online, which then we had to hire more staff. So we weren't able to react. And so when you look at us compared to others, I think one thing that makes us unique is that we were growing. We lost enrollment outside of our control. And so we lost those dollars. So pretty tremendous impact. So this just highlights the reason that I include this slide, and the board has seen it before in past presentations, is because there was a comment made by a local legislator that just had asked us, you know, why is Wayzata in budget cuts? What did they do with all the money they received during the pandemic? Well, I put this together because it shows that the uniqueness of our district, and I don't think there wasn't clarity around that comment and understanding. So the district that year, showing here, and this was what I was alluding to, we lost 200 kids when we were supposed to gain 250. And then you kind of walk through the math here. So where we would have been versus where we were. So just in FY 23-24, which was last year, we should have been at over 13,000 kids. We're at 12,408. So if you just do the compounding factor on that, at a minimum, the district lost out on $11.4 million in revenue that we would have had, and up to as much as $22.4 million. So we had a drastic impact on it. And also those initial COVID-related dollars were based kind of on the free and reduced, the title. And we got very little comparably to other districts. So while we were impacted the same, we did not get a lot of COVID dollars comparably, and we also saw a big hit in enrollment. This just highlights just the difference of where we were at that time versus where we had projected if the pandemic had not happened. And just the lasting impacts of the pandemic, probably everybody in this room recalls when the district had to react because of the pandemic and go into cost containment measures. I think it's kind of showing that I think it was very unpopular at the time. I think we took a lot of heat for it because people didn't understand it, and that's kind of what I talked about on that previous slide. I think it's showing when you look at districts around us and across the state that maybe it was pretty smart that we got ahead of this when we did and made the cuts when we did. Just because, as you know, a lot of those expenditures can even grow exponentially, especially on the expenditure side. So by making the cuts when we did back in 22, 23, and through this current year, those cuts had to be less. If we would have continued to wait, obviously the amount of cuts we'd have had would have been more. So pretty impactful. And then obviously a big help for us has been the growth that we're experiencing previous to the pandemic. That's been a huge help. So we're hopefully in the final year of the original cost containment plan. All right, preliminary budget. So that was a lot of verbiage before this, but we get the prelim budget. So Chase, I think you told me I had 20 minutes, so I'm kidding, but I think you did. All right, so this is a slide that the board's used to seeing. The reason that I put it up here is because schools are complex. We're fund accounting, so there's the different funding streams, and they have to stay, they're guided by uniform financial UFARS codes, and so we have to follow those by state statute. So the district is broken up into several different funds, starting on the top there, general fund, our food service fund, community service fund, building construction fund, and our debt service fund. They all obviously are for different things, and certain things cannot be transferred from funds. So our debt service can't go to anywhere else. Building construction fund has to be used for exactly what it says. Community service and food service, if they would go into deficit, the general fund would have to bail them out. But when their fund balances are healthy, it can't go the other way around. For what we're going to be talking about tonight, the majority of our budget is the general fund. That's the key portion. The arrows that are pointing are the ones that affect the levy. So despite the fact we have these different funds, only those ones with yellow are impacted by the levy. Another similar slide, this just shows the budget timeline. Tonight I'm showing the preliminary FY 24-25 budget, but as you can see here, we actually are already, as soon as our audit ended, which the board will be approving later on, we go right into revised budget. So I know Finance Director David Draskovich and his team and Jen Walk are already working on the revised budget, which we will likely come to the board in February or March. And then April looks at the capital related budget. And then we show up here in June for the budget approval for next year. So I always say in any given time period, we're working in 3 different years. So it's always interesting and complex for the team. This just goes over the sources of revenue. So when you look at kind of the pie of all the revenue that we receive, you can see here the lion's share comes from state aid, which is about 63%. Our property tax is about 33%. And I would just note, coming from outstate and just being really familiar with other districts, we're extremely lucky we have such a supportive community. Typically, that property tax percentage is usually in the 10% to 20% range. So we do have a very supportive community. We're very grateful for that. So the reason I also point that out is because of that property tax. You'll see later in the presentation, there is a lot of the funding streams inside of the levy that are based on that. And so we might, as a community, because of the makeup of our community and the demographics, will end up having to levy more, where you get outstate where different demographics that more state aid would cover their area, if that makes sense. And then just other, and then federal. Federal shrank a little bit. It had increased, and that was for obvious reasons during the COVID pandemic, despite the fact that we did get some COVID dollars. I believe it was around 11.7 million over that time period. That was a very small portion when you factor over those 4 years. That's almost $800 million worth of budget. General fund expenditures, this shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone. We are a service-oriented industry because we're serving our students, and so 72.4% estimated of our budget is salaries and benefits, and then followed by purchase services, supplies and materials, capital, and then miscellaneous. Purchase services inside of there would be our transportation, utilities, and some of the other big ones inside of there. And then capital and purchase services would include a lot of the construction projects we do with the LTFM dollars. All right, excuse me, this is the preliminary budget that went to the board in June, and this puts everything together. So this gets a little complex. It'll make more sense as I go through the next few slides, but this includes the general fund and all the different funds. As you can see over on the right, the majority of the revenue comes out of the general fund, right? It's 83.5%, and then it would be same or pretty much similar in the expenditures from the general fund. And then you can kind of work your way down and see the different size of the funds and the makeup of the dollars inside of those. You'll see the revenues over expenditures there is a negative 6.6 million. Don't gasp. We've already kind of talked about this. So this deals with, and we'll get into it when we talk about the levy, but there's massive levy adjustments depending on a lot of things. This one here is driven by that adjustment with the LTFM, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but essentially that was a big impact. And then if you look here in the construction fund down under expenditures, it's showing a projected expenditure spend of 4.5 million and revenue up top of only 291 million. The revenue on top is primarily just any rebate we would get, but primarily it's interest income on those dollars sitting in there. And then the construction fund would be the remaining of the abatement bonds that we have. And so we're spending those down. So that 4.5 million has a big impact on it. All right, now we will switch over to, let me see. All right, perfect. I know it's really hard to see on the left there, so I won't be reading word for word. This is from the June budget presentation, but it just kind of alludes, it kind of gives the reader or the public the opportunity to kind of read through some of the greater points in the fund. So this is our general fund. This is the one that when the community talks about it or when the school board's talking about it, this is the one that we're paying attention to all the time because this is really the operations of the district. So you can see here with that levy adjustment in there of the 5.6 million, it's showing we have a projected $2.8 million deficit. Again, that's not really the true picture. Because there is a levy adjustment, it's related to LTFM. And with that LTFM adjustment, the district is able to levy, because we're a 1A district, we're able to levy for the LTFM projects that we are able to do. As we all recall during the pandemic, because there's a 2-year lag on here, we didn't project the pandemic and we didn't project the impacts it would have on our construction plans that we submit to the state with a 10-year plan. And so we weren't able to get to a lot of those projects. So the last few years, we're seeing pretty big swings on our adjustments. So when you look at our financials, it will look like we have this big fund balance in our long-term facility maintenance. Essentially what happens is the state through the levy goes and pulls back what we don't spend. So if we levy $16 million, but we only spend 8, they're gonna come back and swoop that the next year. So that's the reason for the adjustment on here. All right, this is just another way to look at it. This pulls out that adjustment. This is a truer picture of the actual operations of the district. So really, when you look at it, this year, as I said, we're coming out of the cost containment. We projected 2.7 million revenues over expenditures. As the board recalls from the June presentation on the right there, we really kind of showed some of the highlights of the budget, what's included in there, the different restricted, non-spendable, assigned, unassigned funds, and then kind of walked through. At that time, we were projecting 12,684. I can tell you, finance director and David Draskovich and myself were extremely uncomfortable with the 12,684. We were pushed to it. I'm kidding. We had a lot of conversations on it because we're a pupil-driven revenue system. Essentially, that's your building block. So you're laying in that projected enrollment, which drives your revenue, and then you're laying in your expenditures to see if they can cover. We felt a little bit uncomfortable with that, but after looking at kind of what we were watching and seeing and working with other district partners and Jen Welk with her experience, we landed on that. And kind of crazy enough, the district has done 2 demographic studies in the last 3 years. When you look at the demographic study done by Hazel Reinhartz in the fall, winter of 2022, that projection right there is 2.5 years ahead of her projections. So she's a well-respected demographer, and we're already kind of blowing those out. You'll see later in the presentation, we just crossed over 12,800 students. So we're even increasing above what our forecast was. But on the bottom there, this just shows you a lot of things can change. So I always tell you, the board members, that you see these numbers, don't fall in love with them because they will change. Like they will for sure change. When we're building this budget, it's back in, it starts in January, February, March, April, May, and we're bringing it to you in June. So we're going off of a lot of assumptions. And so that's why the finance team in the district do a revised budget midway through. So there's a lot of variables that can happen that can impact it. And I listed some of those on the upcoming slides as well. So this is essentially the same thing, but just a couple of things I'd highlight is just what I talked about, keys reasons why the district is rebounding from the devastating impact due to the pandemic, was cost containment, addressing that early and quickly, the student enrollment returning to pre-pandemic levels. The special ed cross subsidy also had a big impact. The one-time general education at 4%, but now back to 2%, but that 4% did help the 1 year. And then kind of looking out into the future, obviously the things that can quickly change is if student enrollment would slow. So that would change things drastically because as we're building into our projections, excuse me. There was a conspiracy theory that people claimed I was trying to lose my voice so someone would have to stand in for me. So that is not true for the record. So. But when you look at it, if student enrollment growth would stop or slow, that would have a pretty devastating impact. We saw that during the pandemic. When you look at, obviously, negotiations can have a really big impact just because you look at 73% of our budget is made up of salaries and benefits. So that could change things really quickly. Special education costs increasing. Like I said, we saw a big increase just in the current year when we budgeted from last year to this current year. If we had a referendum that failed, tech levy failing, and then just the pure fact, as Dr. Anderson's mentioned it several times at board work sessions or board meetings, this is a really bad business model. I talk to my buddies in the private world or my counterparts, and they always say, wait, so you can't control your revenue, you can't really control your enrollment, and you can't totally control your expenditures, and then you're supposed to operate. And it's like, yep, that's the deal. So it is a challenging thing. So as I've talked about many times, we're very lucky to have growing enrollment because it's allowed us to sustain. And you'll notice that projection of 2.7 million and the fact that at that time we are projecting a growth of 276 students, roughly 10,000 a student, gets you right to that 2.7. So it shows you the instrumental nature of continued growth and why it helps us. Districts that aren't growing or are stagnating, they will be doing cuts every 3 to 5 years, just with the plain fact that you're bringing in between 2 to 3% new money, and you're paying out far excess in that. All right. Oops. All right, so this is just, I'm not going to go over this whole slide, but this is kind of a summary of what we just talked about. Obviously, we as a district and a finance team and operations are watching heavily the enrollment. We're watching that all the time. And we're watching expenditures and just different cost increase areas. And we're also looking at some of the unfunded mandates that are still to come. We'll touch on that later in the presentation, but we're still kind of waiting to see with the summer unemployment and now with the new family leave, that also could have some big impacts on districts. And I don't think that was really thought about. We did learn some numbers last Friday from AMSD. So it will show we were pretty smart for putting away some of the dollars we did with the summer unemployment, because that, in my opinion, will not make the summer. They will be out of that $135 million. So I think we're on the good end of kind of foreseeing that this was going to come pretty quickly and putting some dollars aside. All right, now we're finally to the payable 2025 tax levy information. I know everybody's been waiting for this part. So, and everybody in the room, I do think I'm funnier than I am. The board's probably used to it, but it's kind of my style. So just going into the change in the tech levy does not determine change in budget. So you'll see some slides in here. A lot of people think we're a growing district, we're an expanding district, there's new houses all the time, that doesn't necessarily mean more dollars for the district. We're essentially, as I pointed out in earlier slides, The state sets the limits. MDE produces a levy limitation report for us. We get what we get. You'll see it later on in the slide, but we break it down to kind of show that. But outside of our tech levy, everything is set to the per pupil. It's no different than state aid. It is per pupil driven. So probably not too much else to touch on this one. So levy development, the general levy, you've heard me talk about that during the budget, but the general fund, the general levy, so student enrollment is the big driver, voter approved operating referendum, voter approved capital projects levy, otherwise known as the tech levy, and then facilities, which would be LTFM. Community service would be for our ABE programs and early childhood programs. And then debt service, of course, is levied to pay the bond principal and interest on the voter approved and alternative facility bonds. So differences in levy cycles. So school districts, our budget years begin on July 1st. As you can imagine, that makes audits really fun because when do schools do projects? We do projects in the summer. So you can imagine that's a lot of fun when we're working through construction contracts and factoring in our accruals. But we start July 1st and June 30th. And then 2025 taxes provide revenue for 2026. So I talked about it a little bit. We're always working in 2 to 3 years at a time. So what we're talking about tonight will impact next year's budget, not current year budget. And then our budget is adopted in June. So city or county differential there would be their budget year begins normal calendar year, and then their 2025 taxes provide revenue for the calendar year that we're in. This is just an example that we put up here, but this would be an example of a notification, the proposed property tax that would go out by a county. Again, this is just an example on the right, but every owner of a taxable property pays property taxes to various taxing jurisdictions. So the county, the city, the school district, special districts in which the property is located. So I feel like sometimes there is just a feeling that it's just the school district, but there is the city and counties on there and the other things that I mentioned. So so in here, each taxing jurisdiction sets its own tax levy, often based on limits set in state law. For us, that would be absolutely true because our limits are all determined by the legislature. And then the county sends out the bills, collects taxes from the property tax owners, and distributes the funds back to the other taxing jurisdictions, which we would be one of those. So this is just another slide showing the district really doesn't have much control over the levy amounts. So it just highlights here that the school district has a limited authority to the levy taxes. And then MDE calculates the levy amounts for the various categories, and they're set by state law and voter approval. So this is a lot of information, but we put it on here just because there's a lot of steps that happen before this even comes to the board in September when we asked you to approve the preliminary levy. But step one, the city or the county assessor determines estimated market values of the properties. That's nothing that the school district does. The legislature sets the formulas for the tax capacity and the school district levy limits. The county auditor calculates the tax capacity for each parcel of property, as well as total tax capacity for each school district. The Minnesota Department of Ed, it is a lovely, lovely report, roughly 39 to 42 pages that comes out early in September. That's what comes to you. We kind of summarize it, go over it, and we make some changes where we can, but it's basically determined by them. And then the school board sets a levy and is only one step in this process. And then finally, the county auditor divides the final levy by the district's total tax capacity to determine the tax rate needed to raise the levy amount. So then this goes to us. So September 8th, that's what I just mentioned, when MDE prepares and distributes the first drafts of the levy limitation report. September 23rd is when this board approved our proposed levy amounts to the maximum. And by maximum, I've never really liked that word. I've said it at our board things, but it's the word that they use. Essentially, it means that we can't go above that, but it allows for change. So if something changed or if MDE made an error, if the county noticed anything, it would allow those numbers to change. If the board had picked a set number in September, we would be stuck at that number. So I always like to explain that. So mid-November, county mails out proposed property tax statements to all property tax owners. And then December 9th, there's the public hearing, which we're doing now. And then following this, we'll ask the board to certify the levy amounts. All right, so now we'll get into some numbers for this. So proposed payable 2025 tax levy is increased from 2024 of 3.9 million or 4.3%. So changes by the levy category and reasons for these I'll describe further. So this just kind of highlights the proposed amount, as I mentioned, was increased by about 3.9 million or 4.3%. And that is up from 92.3 million up to 96.3 million. One thing to point out, and you'll see it on an upcoming slide, but our tax base has been growing and growing and growing, and this is the first year it's kind of come back down. And people in this room or board members that own homes will kind of resonate with the upcoming slide as well. All right, so just to kind of remind when we look at RMV and NTC, so referendum market value, just as a definition, it's the taxable market value of all property taxes in the school district, excluding seasonal recreation and agricultural lands. So school taxes for the local share of a few categories of funding, including voter-approved operating referendums, are spread against the RMV. Net tax capacity, the NTC that you see up there, is the value of property in which the property taxes will be levied against for all other school funding formulas. And it's calculated by multiplying a property's taxable market value by its assigned classification rate. And those classification rates are set by the legislature. So when you look on this, this just goes to show, obviously there's a lag. So there's the catch up based on the property sales. So you can see here, in 2023 and 2024, we probably all experienced it. During the pandemic, we saw house prices kind of go astronomical. Then there was the catch up. So you saw that huge increase in both RMV and NTC of 16.5 and 18.6 in 2023, came down a little bit in 2024. And then I just went a step further and grabbed some information off of Hennepin County that shows it did decrease, or it isn't increasing at the same rate as it has the past 2 years. So this, we'll get into it a little bit more, but this just shows like, basically, this was kind of experienced all over the state too. This wasn't just to our area, our school district. Even outstate Minnesota saw housing prices increase very substantially. All right, so now just breaking it down by the different areas. If you recall in the earlier slide where I showed the yellow arrows and they're pointing to the different funds that are impacted by the levy. When we look at just the general levy, that had an increase of 2.8 million or roughly 3.93%. Community service was up 4.7% or $95,000. And debt service was up $984,000 or 5.5%. When you look at last year, the general fund was up 3.8%. Community ed was a negative 6.6%. And that was based off of the legislative change in FY23 where they shifted more to state aid and away from levy. And then debt service was 11.5% last year. I won't dig through this slide, but this is just more the detail of the levy and the different voter approved areas in all the different areas of the levy. But essentially it just breaks down the same thing. You'll see the 3.9, the 4.7, 5.6, and then the overall aggregate of the 4.3. This looks at the levy since 2016, 2017, so FY17 all the way through the current that we're talking about today. So kind of the point of this slide is just to show as our enrollment increases, the levy increases. So logically, right, it's primarily driven by student count, and so logically it would increase. And you can see over the years the increase and the percentage increases. In pay 20, and after that, you're looking at some big adjustments from MDE and some of the estimates caused by the pandemic. But when you look at that aggregated average over that time period, it was 4.84, and then the current year is 4.26. So explanation of levy changes. These get a little complex because we would kind of be going back and forth between this slide and this one, but just to highlight, there's always going to be fluctuations in these because some of these estimates are by the district. When we put in per pupil or when we put in pupil estimates, the state also puts in a lot of estimates too on inflation and some of the other areas that they are forecasting, which then once they get the real numbers, they have to go back and adjust. So we did experience that, but this 1.2 million was voter approved operating referenda authority. So it includes the annual inflationary increase, and then enrollment, of course, is expected to continue to grow. The voter-approved capital levy. Levy is based on voter-approved tax rate applied to the district's previous year's tax base. So the district's tax base has increased, resulting in an increase in the district levy. And then the LTFM, that increased roughly 1.4 million. So as I alluded to earlier, we're a 1A district, so we're one of 28 in the state that are able to levy for our LTFM dollars and aren't subject to the cap. So the district's eligible for the LTFM revenue based on the state-approved projected costs, and levies are coordinated with other levies to maintain a level or declining tax rate. So this just shows that continued as we kind of rebound from the pandemic and as we're able to get at a lot of those projects. All right, so prior year adjustments, this is kind of what I was talking about. So enrollment estimates provided by the district impact these adjustments, but estimates from MDE used also play a role. A large driver of the adjustments this year and last year were adjustments made to MDE's initial estimates for the district's inflationary adjusted operating referenda to the final calculated authority for FY23, and an adjustment for an error that was made by MDE on the district's property tax label from 2024 also had a significant impact on this as well. And finally, debt service. This relates as kind of depending on when the debt's maturing and as the bonds are set up. And we also have an impact from the 2023A bond that was issued last year. All right, so factors impacting individual taxpayers with their school taxes. So changes in valuation of an individual property, changes in total value of all properties within the district, and then increase or decrease in levy amounts caused by changes in the state funding formulas, local need and cost, voter approved referendums, and other factors. So this kind of just goes into, what's happening with each slice. So higher market value increase, obviously, there's going to be a bigger slice of that pie. Lower market increase, smaller slice. So each property owner only pays a portion of the pie. So when you look at it like this lays it out. So two properties, both houses roughly at $650,000 valuation. That's where I talked about we have a limit that we can levy, right? That's set by the state. So if we can only levy $5,000, each of these houses at the same value. And obviously, this is just the school taxes I'm talking about, not the 8 different towns or cities inside of our district, because there would be their city taxes on there. But if we were levying $5,000 for the school and all things were held constant, each house would pay $2,500. Now taking it a step further, where these same two houses, the orange house value increased by 10% and the blue house value increased by 25%. So that's where we've talked about, like, that's nothing that we can necessarily control. So this, we'd still only be getting the same $5,000, and it would just show you the difference. The house that's now estimated at $715 would be paying $2,340, and the house at $812 would be paying $2,600. I put this in here just because it depicts if you had a $650,000 house in any of these districts, this would be the portion that you'd be paying for tax. So we grabbed cities or districts right around us just to kind of show where we lie within that. So I thought this was just kind of a good way to show our district compared to the ones around us. All right, so legislative actions, changes for pay 25. So in 23, the legislature passed laws that affect property taxes in 2025. So provided tax benefit to homeowners by increasing the homestead exclusion for valuations between $76,000 and $517,000, and then increased the first tier limit for ag homestead land to 3.5 from 2.15. Obviously, these don't impact our district pretty tremendously, but we just had them in the slides. And then for your levy comparison, I won't go through this real deep, but examples include the school district taxes only and are shown based on no change and a 25.4% increase in property value for residential homes over the past 4 years. And that kind of is shown by that slide, a few where we saw that big deviation or big increase. So this, if you look up here, you could just pull one that shows a $650,000 house just because we've kind of been focusing on that. But if you would kind of look over to the right, you would see what they actually paid in 2022, which would be $3239 in actual taxes payable 2023. If the valuation had stayed the same, which we know property values increased, if it stayed the same, that same house would have paid $2810. So it would have paid almost $400 less. The next year it would have paid $2,700. And then the estimate that we would be showing is $2,739 for this year. So I'll talk a little bit about why that happens, but it's essentially because we are such a growing district and because we are expanding so fast, there's more to spread the dollars that are provided by the levy. So obviously we know that it's not always the case that the house stays in the same valuation. So people in here could say, well, my property taxes went up. That's not right. I'm assuming the valuation of your home went up at the same time. I won't go through each one of these, as I'm sure the board, and if the public was able to view this, this just goes through a whole bunch of different scenarios. It's stuff that came up in September that we wanted to make sure we included because it kind of highlights an individual could go in here and kind of associate it with their current situation. So, and that's basically all of these, just showing the difference in valuation. So I would encourage the public or the board to view those. And if you had any questions, you could always let me know. But this is just a summary. So what causes increases, decreases in levies? I talked about it. State law, per pupil, and population. Obviously, those impact heavily. The market value and tax capacity that we just talked about, and then changes in expenditures. So I had talked about our long-term facility maintenance. So if we were to levy 16 million, but we were only able to spend 12 million, there would be those adjustments in expenditures. All right, so the final proposed property tax payable for 2025, in summary, the general fund would be 75.4 million, community service at 2.1 million, debt service at 18.7 for a total of 96,322,943. So next steps, the board accepts the public comment on the proposed levy, and then the board certifies later on in the meeting the 2025 property tax levy. Finally, and I know Board Chair Sahoni will mention this, but we are available for public comments. So comments and questions must be related to the 2024 payable 25 tax levy and Wayzata Public Schools portion of the taxes. You can't talk about the city or county because obviously we have no control over those. And then the speaker must be a District 284 taxpayer, must state name and address for the record. And then Hennepin County determines property valuation. So if there was an issue with that, we would just advise you to reach out to them. All right.
All right, thank you so much, Scott. I wonder if we can advocate with the legislature next year in their session that our executive director of finance is a funny man. Can we get a little more funding for the district? Maybe we can. But thank you so much. Board members, there is no action required at this time, but later in the meeting, we will be asked to approve the levy reports and recommendations. For now, do you have any questions or comments? No? Okay. I have one question, Scott. If you can go back to the slide on RMVs and NTCs. There you go. That's the one. So we have dropped from whatever it was in 23 to 24, and now estimated in 25 is a lot less as well. So am I understanding this correct in that the portion of the pie that the state contributes and the property taxes are, they contribute is now going to change to a higher proportion from the state, lower from the property taxes. So it used to be 60-35, I think, at one point. Now I'm seeing it inch to a 65-30 state to property taxes. Is that correct?
I'm not certain. I think this would more depict just the growth in the valuation. So it would be as we see the district expand, it's a mixture of all the new developments coming online and then the increases in property values. So if I'm understanding you correctly, this would just depict those increase in valuations and expansion of the district, and then it's starting to normalize now. So where we're seeing big increases, if someone bought a house for $600,000 in 2020 and they could sell it today for $850, we're seeing that slowly, that increase that was increasing at an increasing rate is now increasing at a decreasing rate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. No one else? Thank you. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the public comments on truth in taxation. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the audience to address the school board regarding the truth in taxation presentation. Scott mentioned a couple of things during his presentation. Also, speakers will be allotted approximately 3 minutes. Please note that this time is provided for citizens only to address the board. This is not an appropriate venue for discussion or debate. If the speaker would like a follow-up contact from the Board of Education, they may leave their contact information with admin assistant Amy on my right. Are there any speakers? Are there any speakers? Okay, I don't see anyone coming to the podium. Thank you all for your comments, which there were none, to the school board. So next item on the agenda is reports from organizations. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for a Wayzata High School Student Council representative to report on information and events at Wayzata High School. Normally, we have Peyton Moidel, who is the Vice President of the Student Council, come and talk to us. But this evening, I believe there is Rachel, who is the Student Council Junior VP from Wayzata High School to talk to us. So, Rachel, would you please come forward?
Chair Sahoni, Rachel had to leave
Okay.
just due to timing. She did leave me her notes. So as long as you promise not to ask any questions, I will read you her notes.
Agreed. Good deal.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
The Student Council is holding our annual Winter Festivities Day on December 20th. The Senate has supplied staff with elf on the shelf costumes that will be worn throughout the day. Candy canes will be passed out before school at each of the entrances. Ugly sweaters have been requested of the staff and students to wear. Adopt a Family raised $11,526 as of their last fundraising day last Wednesday. Senate and House members gathered together at Target to shop for requested items. A group of senators dropped off the gifts at the Children's Hospital this last Saturday. The fundraiser at Honey and Mackey's resulted in an extra $200 that was split between IOCP and the Children's Hospital. Fall sports season have ended with their annual banquets. Girls cross-country qualifiers, however, decided to end their season with another race, NXN, out in Oregon. And I believe they placed 9th nationally. So congratulations to them. Drama Club has callback editions for the winter play, Romeo and Juliet. NHS has started preparations for their annual winter formal, The Snowball. They've not released the theme publicly yet, but they hear it isn't The Great Gatsby, which is good for Student Council. Finals are coming after winter break, with Sip and Study ready to start up again, where students can help emotionally and academically support their peers through tutoring. And last but not least, Peyton Moidel would like to share that the high school's Nordic and Alpine team have a flag football competition to determine winter skiing sports is superior. Like always, the Nordic team won, 1-0. Peyton is not so optimistic for next year. That's all.
Thank you, Amy. On behalf of the board, please convey our congratulations to the Student Council and the students at Wayzata. So thank you so much for filling in. All right, next item on the agenda is recognitions, and I will now join Superintendent Anderson at the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Chase Anderson. I'm the superintendent for the school district, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here tonight. And I always get to convene the recognitions portion of our school board meetings. So it's my pleasure tonight to make 3 such presentations. And we have, to start with, 2 Central Middle School staff members, Ann Holtman and Paulette Chernus. If they both would come forward, please, and join our board chair. I'm going to read a script for each of our staff. I'll do one at a time, and then they'll have an opportunity to make a couple comments if you would like to do so. And we appreciate both of you being here tonight, and congratulations. I will start out with Ann Holtman. It is with great pride and gratitude that I write to recognize the profound impact Ann Holtman has had on the Wayzata Central Middle School community. As one of our longest tenured staff members in our special ed department, Ann's dedication, compassion, and leadership have left an incredible mark on our school. Ann serves as a teacher in one of our SDC classrooms, a role that demands both expertise and an exceptional level of care. She consistently goes above and beyond to meet the needs of her students, advocating for their success and celebrating their achievements. Her thoughtful approach ensures that every student in her care feels valued and supported, and her efforts have transformed countless lives over the years. Ann's impact extends far beyond the classroom walls. She is a quiet yet steadfast leader in our school community, offering guidance and encouragement to both colleagues and students alike. Whether through mentoring new staff, collaborating with teams to improve outcomes, or simply offering a listening ear, Ann's presence is a source of strength for many in our building. One of Ann's most remarkable qualities is her sense of humor in what can often be demanding and challenging role. Her ability to find joy and bring laughter to those around her is truly a gift. Ann embodies the spirit of CMS through her unwavering commitment to inclusion, her dedication to fostering a supportive community, and her passion for helping every student reach their full potential. Her contributions have been and continue to be a cornerstone of our school's success. We are excited to call Ann our Wayzata Public Schools Employee of the Month. Her impact is immeasurable, and we are so fortunate to have her as part of the CMS family. And at this time, I would invite Ann forward to feel free to make a few comments if she would be so inclined. You're welcome.
Sorry, that was a little moving, touching. I wrote something down because I'm a little overwhelmed in public speaking like this, but I was beyond flattered to receive this recognition. Special education as a whole is a team effort. I could not do my job without the support of my teacher teammates, and most importantly, the paraprofessionals that I work with each day, and they're all here tonight, so that's even more positive. The paraprofessionals at CMS are attentive, empathetic, and passionate about the work that we all do. They help make my days run more smoothly, and I could not do it without them. Together, we work hard to grow middle school minds. Sorry. I am thankful for my special services supervisor, Amy, and the CMS administrative team, Julie, Rob, and Xavier. I appreciate the respect and trust that they give me in my role. Teaching is exhausting, but the connections with the students and knowing that they look forward to seeing me each day makes it easy to come to work. So I'm humbled and obviously moved to be chosen by my colleagues. So thank you.
Congratulations again, and no apologies necessary for emotion. That's a good thing. We value that around here. Our next Employee of the Month is Paulette Chernus, who has had a profound impact on the Wayzata Central Middle School community, particularly within our special education department. Every day, Paulette shows up to school and showcases her dedication and her unwavering commitment to students and colleagues, making her a true cornerstone of our school. As one of our longest tenured special education staff members, Paulette has been a steadfast advocate for students with unique learning needs. She tirelessly works to ensure that every student in her care has the resources and support they need to thrive academically and personally. Her ability to connect with her students and provide individualized care is nothing short of inspiring. Beyond her work with students, Paulette has played an essential role in mentoring new staff members as they join our building. Her willingness to share her expertise, offer guidance, and provide encouragement has helped countless educators find their footing and flourish in their roles. Paulette's work ethic is unmatched. She consistently goes above and beyond, not only meeting the needs of her students, but also contributing to the overall success of our special education department. Her peers have described her as an anchor to the department. This month, we are thrilled to honor Paulette Cherness as our Wayzata Public Schools Employee of the Month. This recognition is a small token of our immense gratitude for her countless contributions to CMS. She embodies the values of hard work, compassion, and leadership, and we are so fortunate to have her as part of our community. Thank you, Paulette, for all that you do. Your impact is immeasurable, and your work truly has made Central Middle School a better place for students and staff. Congratulations. And now it's your turn.
See if I can hold it together. First, I just want to thank you so much for this recognition. It truly is an honor. I'd like to thank Central, the district, and the students and families that I do have the pleasure to work with every day. The families I work with are such amazing families who not only advocate for their students, but they support me as well. The administration, Xavier, Julie, Rob, and then my special education supervisor, Amy, have continued to support me, and I do really appreciate that. Dang it. Trying to hold it together. I know I can always go to you guys if I need something. All my coworkers at Central are the most amazing coworkers and educators there are. And I am very glad that I get to go to work each day and work with them, and that also my own kids get to learn from them. I feel this honor could go to each and every one of them. I can also not go without mentioning my amazing special education staff, both the teachers and the amazing paraprofessionals at Central. They go unmatched to any other. I am very lucky to be a part of that team. I truly couldn't do my job without them, and it helps that they make coming to work a lot of fun. I also like to shout out my family. They probably don't always get the best side of me when I get home after a long day, but their love and support for me and what I do is always there, so I appreciate that. And then the last thing, I was just kind of reflecting as I thought about it, and when I got hired at Central Middle School, I really wasn't sure how it was going to go. I thought about it, and I had 4 years experience under my belt and only had taught elementary at a whole different district. And so I thought they were a little crazy for hiring me for that role because I didn't think I could probably even do it myself. But I was really extremely excited to get into the district, and I thought, well, I'll give it a chance. I'll teach middle school for a year. If I want to go back into elementary, I can try to apply and do that. And now 14 years later, I am still at Central Middle School, and I have not left, and I can't imagine going anywhere else and teaching anything but middle school. So thank you.
Thanks again, and congratulations. Well done. And an impressive cheering squad here tonight as well, by the way. Thanks for joining them. Fun. At the board meetings, we also recognize individuals who have announced their intent to retire since the last board meeting that we had. We only have one such individual tonight. I do not believe she is here. If so, she can certainly come forward and be recognized. And we're recognizing tonight Rahima Majumdar, who has been with the Wayzata Kids program at Birchview for 23 years. She's probably tuned in on YouTube tonight, so we'll give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. And that includes our recognitions for this evening. And again, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and congratulations to our recipients.
Congratulations to the honorees and thank you, Dr. Anderson. And now we have the highlight of our regular meetings, the school spotlight presentation. Tonight, the spotlight is on Central Middle School, and I'll turn it over to Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Dana Miller, to make the introductions. Dana.
Thank you. Members of the board, welcome. Dr. Anderson, tonight it is my great privilege to introduce to you students and staff from Central Middle School under the direction of Principal Xavier Reed. As part of their student engagement goal of 100% of students from Central Middle School growing in at least one category on the Building Co-Created Engagement rubric, the staff and students at Central have leaned into a team of student leaders known as the Central Change Agents. Principal Xavier Reed and Assistant Principals Julie Johnson and Rob Remington, along with staff and these student change agents, are excited to share their story on how through student leadership they are making a positive impact on Central Middle School climate. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Reed and this fine group of change agents we have here with tonight to share their story. Thank you.
All right, we're going to open it up and allow our change agents to introduce.
I'm Christian Sims.
I'm Harper Mitchellitis.
I'm Ariel Foley.
I'm Daniel Johnson.
I'm Brady Fall.
I'm Opti.
Then I'm Dean of Students Cameron McWhorter.
And I'm Sarah Thelmoni, the other Dean of Students.
Thank you for having us. So, something that we have discussed as a school is the importance of being able to get feedback from different parts of our school, different stakeholders. And I think that we focus a lot on this, and sometimes we can forget the student voice. And student voice is probably the most important voice in our school. This is the group that we serve. And so we wanted to have a focus on not just the voice of students, but also give them opportunities to lead and to build agency as well. Our students in the past, so beyond the students that are sitting in front of you right now, years ago, we've had students that were yearning for opportunities like this, and we're yearning to have an impact on our school in a bigger way. And they wanted to be a part of conversations where policies or planning or being in space with some of our teacher leaders and some of our administrative leaders as well were happening. And so that's where the idea of the Central Change Agents came from. Truly, and I say this a lot, these are the next generation of leaders in our society. They're going to be change agents in our society. And it's important for us to give them that opportunity while in middle school to help them to grow these skills at an early age. This work that we're doing is directly connected to our school growth plan. CCA has been involved with the similar activities, if not the same activities that some of our teachers and some of our licensed staff members have been involved with. Specifically, our second goal this year is around student experience. And Miss Dana had alluded to it earlier today, but that goal is that 100% of our students in grades 6 through 8 at Central Middle School will grow at least one category level on each of the categories on the co-created engagement rubric. Later in the presentation, you'll see where the students worked to give their feedback on our engagement rubric. That's some work that we have done recently.
So our vision of the Central Change Agents is not to only empower and elevate themselves, but others to be the best versions of themselves, to be agents of change, to specifically provide students the opportunity to impact the school climate and leverage their leadership throughout the building. We plan on doing this in many different ways, like changing policies to create inclusive learning environments, mentoring younger students like our 6th graders, and most importantly, having student voice, be part of our leadership committees like our building operation committee and our building instructional leadership team.
The CCA story is we work with a bunch of different things around our school, and in the picture on the left you see Ariel and Chandler handing out popcorn to one of the classes this morning. The one on the bottom is working with our Friday morning announcements, and then the one on the right was from In the Middle Day, where students led a circle. So we work around.
All right, so during this day, we came together as a group and talked with the organization called MDE. So we basically made a circle in the wrestling room, and then we talked about like how to make an impact on the school, and we split into groups and then went in the room, and we also like had a talking piece so everybody could go by one, and basically just talk about how we could make a change and like make the school a better place. Oh, so and this was the same day. We basically went into the auditorium, and then we put posters up and split into groups and talk about like basically like our decisions and like impacting and stuff like that.
We looked at the engagement rubric survey that was taken previously that year and filled in what we thought was there, and looked at how students had answered questions based on like religion and all that. In the Middle Day was an opportunity we had for the sixth graders to come into the building a day before the eighth and seventh graders were there. We ran circles so they could ask their questions they wanted and get to know their way around the building. And then in the end of the day, we went to classrooms and helped students with stuff they needed to know around the building. And to this day, I still have sixth graders that will come up to me in the hall and tell me about their day from In the Middle Day.
And this is another amazing initiative that our change agents got to participate in. So last spring, our eighth graders, CCA members, got to host a tour for Birchview students. Not only were they able to create a sense of belonging, but they were able to build a relationship with incoming students. They did this by facilitating like a circle where they got to do like questions, Q&As, and provide helpful tips on how to be successful at middle school. One thing that amazed me was that was also empowering. It was how they led some work around helping the students write a letter of like encouragement or empowerment to themselves. So when they came back on the first day, they was able to get those letters. Again, they got those letters from themselves just to remind them that they are a part of this community and that we're here to support them. And then this year, like it was spoken of earlier, our change agents this year got to co-create and collaborate with our classroom teachers on creating an engagement rubric. So both sides got to partake in a professional learning development where they had to identify what it looks like, feels like, and sounds like when they are empowered, engaged, compliant, and so forth in specific areas of their learning, such as like teamwork, instruction, and their presence in class. Now that both sides have done this, we're taking this to our build team, where we will identify the key themes and trends and create this rubric so students can feel supported and empowered with their learning.
One example I had for the presence in class was I was talking with my health teacher, and he was saying that he has kids that have their heads down on their desk, AirPods in, but they're still participating in class and answering questions, just throwing their answers into the ring, even if they may not be right. So no matter how it looks, if their presence in class, all you always know is that they're listening.
Okay, so popcorn carts was something that our assistant principal, Julie Johnson, started. On every day one of the week, we go around giving popcorn to teachers who request it, and they give us 50 cents for it. And with those 50 cents, we use that to repair or get anything around the building that we need to better our school.
Last year, the Friday announcements were over the PA system throughout our school, but this year we decided to make it more into a video form, to make it more interactive for students. as you can see, we go around and interview students and teachers just to be able for students to feel connected and involved within our school.
Last year, I did Friday morning announcements with Miss T, our 8th grade dean, and Friday morning announcements is something that we could look forward to throughout the week. Basically, we did this thing called spotted slips, where if we see any students showing children pride, they would get a little treat for it, and it was a very fun and good opportunity to connect with others.
We started working with 7th graders, so they're prepared to take over the Friday morning announcement video.
This is our goals for future CCA, and we would like to see CCA continue to grow in CMS and like just keep having it move on through the next years and find more opportunities to give back to the community.
Also, for other goals for the future of CCA, let's say you had a good relationship with a teacher in 6th grade and you had free time, you could help that teacher like tutor other 6th graders that need help. And peer mediation is where you see two students not getting along, and instead of a teacher like trying to settle it, peer mediation where like another student like would tell them like it's not good, and they would like respect, like they would listen to their words more than the teacher because they would relate to them.
That's it.
Anybody? Other final thoughts? Ms. T, would you like to say anything?
Just to
No?
get to know the 5th graders from a variety of elementary schools is one big goal, because we work with Birchview, but we don't work with the other schools feeding into Central.
Something else we would like to do is bring CCA to other schools because we feel like it's a good learning opportunity. We feel like it's a good thing for you to connect with other students in the building. Like some of the people that in CCA, I've never talked to them until I got in it, and I never knew how we connected or related on a different level till now. So I feel like it's a good experience for other kids in middle school to experience, to learn how to work with others as they get older.
I would say too, just starting CCA last year and the growth that I've seen, confidence and advocacy skills in this group has just been really cool to watch and see, and to have them feel comfortable and safe enough to approach us and say, hey, I have an idea, or this is what we used to do at my old school. Could we try it here? And being willing to think through and have some tough conversations, but be able to see like the greater good for Central Middle School. So it's been really neat to see that and to have them have a voice, especially with the 8th graders moving into the high school too, I think.
That's our presentation. Any questions?
All right. Thank you so much, Principal Reed, all change agents from CMS, and the coach. Great to hear that that students are taking a leadership role actually in school. So, any questions, comments from board colleagues? Yes, sir.
This is fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for waiting while we talked about a whole bunch of budget stuff. That was a lot. So your leadership shows through with that as well. So one of the questions that I have for you is I know you went through an exercise, right, where you talked about what it looks like, feels like, and sounds like when something happens. And Mr. Reed mentioned that you are the change makers in our world, right, and in Central Middle School. What does it look like, sound like, feel like when adults support you to use your voice? Or what did the adults do to support you?
The adults take our ideas and run them to a bunch of our different leadership teams in our building to try to get them to go further along. Because one thing I was really interested in was working with 6th graders. So starting on Wednesday, I actually get to go to a 6th grade math classroom and help out in there for my half block.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm just curious about a restorative circle. What is it about? If you can explain. Thank you.
So we had 2 women come in from the Minnesota Department of Education, and they taught 8th graders last year who are now in 9th grade and us about what it is to be able to lead a circle, which is connecting within a group using a talking piece going around. And usually there's like a topic you talk about and expand off of, where you can just feel connected within a group of people. And yeah.
Then related to that, after which kind of topic you felt connected?
Well, last year on our training day, we all talked about what it looked like to participate at CMS in the CCA and how we feel connected to the building.
And what we wanted to do for future CCA and get things running.
Thank you.
I would just add in too that obviously restorative practices and circles can be to repair harm. These circles that we did on that day were more about building community. So we wanted to build community for the change agents and for all the students that were a part of that. And so that was a way that we were able to start building community and start to build a connection with all of us.
I'm going to add on to that. That's what we use for, especially for in the middle day, we use circles to work with the sixth graders and get them welcomed into our community as well.
Thank you, leaders. I have two questions. So as a change helper, what was the number one question or challenge that you heard from most of the students? If there is one thing that all students were asking to change, what would that be?
For us, one thing that the students asked a lot for us to change was the school lunches.
One thing we wanted to change was just like how people address what we do in the building and actually get it going. Just even like the walking on the right side of the hallway and not like shoving people into lockers, posts, all that.
Yeah, I remember last year too when we were talking about a lot of kids brought up hallway behaviors, which was really interesting to me in the circles that they were recognizing like the hallways were really wild. And even this year too, when we were doing the circles for in the middle day, that was like a really big emphasis in our circle. We kind of split up, and our circle with, I think it was Daniel, yep, and Harper, and one other student. Yes. And they were very like, the message was like, you gotta like keep your hands and your body to yourself and you gotta walk on the right hand side. We have a lot of kids here, which kids are coming from a smaller middle school or smaller elementary school to a big middle school. Like you don't like realize that. So yeah, that was a big one that I heard a lot.
Great. So my second question is just looking at the pictures, it looks like Friday morning announcement was really fun. So what was the most funniest response that you probably edited from the final video? What do you want to share?
Oh, it was our hot to go dance. We had the teachers and students do because it was like trending on TikTok for like a really important week. Like so, Daniel took it to our advisory leader and said, "Why don't we do this?" And he got it running in motion with teachers doing the dance and students doing the dance and turning it all into one clip. We actually got all of them doing it with our custodian.
Nice, thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say well done. It's an impressive set of skills you all have making change in your building, advocating for the kinds of citizens you want to be and whatnot, and to see the excellent presentation, public speaking skills inspires us as board members and really makes us look forward to what you're on to achieve in the future. So well done and keep up the good work.
All right, if there are no more questions, thank you, change agents, teacher, and Principal Reed. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the audience opportunity to address the board. And I think we have a few of those that want to speak tonight. If you haven't had a chance and you do want to speak, please fill out a form in the back of the room and hand it over to Amy. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the community to address the school board. Speakers who wish to provide input to the school board must complete the sign-up sheet and return it to our district administrative assistant, Amy, who is sitting at the table to my right. Please note that you will need to complete a request form to be included on the speaker's request list. When you are invited to the podium, please identify the subject or agenda item to which your comments pertain. Priority will be given to students and families with students currently enrolled in the district. The school board practice is not to engage in a discussion or debate with the speaker, but rather allow the speaker time to express their thoughts. Please present your comments in a respectful and professional manner. This evening, each speaker will be invited up to the podium to speak for 3 minutes. And we have, like I said, we have a number of requested speakers. So I ask that you keep your comments very brief, definitely under 3 minutes. And Director Pryor will help us keep track of the time by holding up a red card at the 3-minute mark. Please end your comments when you see the red card, or if you miss it, when I say thank you. If you have already shared your thoughts with the school board, please consider letting someone new address the board. If a community member shares a message similar to yours, please consider shortening your message or presenting as a group. First, are there any students who would like to speak? I don't see that in the list, so we will pick up the names as I go through these forms. First one is Adam Webb. Adam, would you please approach the podium? And please identify yourself and let us know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Adam Webb. I'm here to speak about the attendance area adjustment process. I'm the annoying guy who has emailed you all a few times, but I've done so because the attendance area adjustment process is significantly impacting my family. As you may know, I currently have a 3rd grader and a kindergartner enrolled at Greenwood Elementary School. I'm here today, along with others, to represent our neighborhood as Concept 8B5, released tonight, contemplates moving our neighborhood, the reserve at Medina, from Greenwood to Northwoods. Our neighborhood wants to stay at Greenwood, and we believe the data and stated goals of the design team strongly support doing so. I also want to say, during the working session earlier, I heard a lot of past tense when we were talking about the process, and that kind of implied 8B5 is a done deal. I really hope that's not the case. I hope family stability isn't reserved for just the richest neighborhood in the school district. I think you know which neighborhood I'm talking about, and I hope you hear me out on my simple proposal tonight. For reference, other one. For reference, our neighborhood is located here. Sorry, we should have rehearsed this better. It's located here. Okay. And we are literally the only neighborhood, the only entire existing neighborhood moved out of Greenwood in Concept 8B5. The only one. Okay. Now, I think everyone's in agreement that Greenwood is set to be over capacity in the future if no changes are made. But the data shows it will be over capacity primarily due to future development gains. So if the school board is open to pocket zoning, which it appears to be with Hollydale and Tavera kind of being on their own, some of the future developments, such as the ones here, can simply be zoned for Northwoods, and our neighborhood, which is fully built out and has always been zoned for Greenwood, can stay at Greenwood. These neighborhoods are also closer to Northwoods than Greenwoods and result in minimal family disruption. Alternatively, and this is my favorite idea, I made this map myself. This neighborhood right here is Meadowview, and it's approximately the same size as our neighborhood. It is being moved from Gleason Lake to Greenwood in order to then move us out of Greenwood to Northwoods. Why move 2 neighborhoods? It is unnecessary. The neighborhoods are almost identically sized. I asked Teamworks to look into this tonight. Ray committed that he would. I hope you as school board members hold him accountable to that. This adds stability to our neighborhood and our lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Next is Joseph Delghausen. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name.
No worries.
Joseph, thank you.
Like you said, my name is Joe Delgausen. I live in the same neighborhood as Adam and these fine people over here. I have a third grader and a kindergartner as well at Greenwood. I'll keep it generally short. I don't understand. You guys say, you know, open feedback, we're open to suggestions. Our entire neighborhood, everybody that I've talked to does not want to move. And every single time there's been a new concept that's been released, it has had our neighborhood always zoned for Northwoods. Not once has there been a single concept that has showed us not moving. The other thing that I think Adam pointed out, it's important, we are literally the only neighborhood that is moving out of Greenwood, and you are moving other neighborhoods that are established into Greenwood. Why move a neighborhood that's going somewhere else to Greenwood solely to move us out of Greenwood to Northwoods? I don't understand how that makes sense. It's just unnecessarily impacting lives. Also, if you guys are going to be open to pocket boundaries, you can't do it for some neighborhoods and not others. All right, we know that there's pocket neighborhoods on the inside of the Plymouth boundary, mainly Kimberly Lane and Plymouth Creek. You guys said Kimberly Lane is going to be way over capacity, but it doesn't matter because we'll just pocket. Well, then pocket for other neighborhoods as well, and let us stay where we want to be. I have a third grader. I have a kindergartner. My kindergartner's on an IEP. He's finally just now established himself with his care team at Greenwood. He's learning to not be super dependent on my wife. As you can imagine, with a special needs child, the mom tends to be a child's safety blanket, right? Greenwood has now become his safety blanket, and it is doing a disservice to him to move him to a new place. My third grader has spent 4 years at Greenwood. He considers Greenwood his home. He refers to it as being traded. He's a big sports guy, so when he talks about it, he's saying, why am I being traded to Northwoods? And he has cried multiple times. So as a dad, seeing that, I feel the need to come up and talk to you guys. I know that it seems like it's already decided. I hope that's not the case. Like I said, we've been putting in feedback since the beginning, and it has never changed, not once. Never been, maybe it's been considered behind closed doors. I don't know. There's never been a concept map released. That's all I have to say. Like I said, we just come here to try and make our voices heard. So I'll yield.
Next, we have Adam Meyer.
Good evening. My name is Adam Meyer. I'm a resident reserve of Medina. I can promise you I'm the last Adam from the reserve of Medina that will speak tonight. I'm obviously here to speak about the attendance area adjustments, particularly how to minimize disruptions for the children in our neighborhood. I'm the father to a first grader at Greenwood. I think Mr. Webb did a good job with his recommendation to show there are possibilities to make financial and geographic sense to keep our neighborhood in the Greenwood school, while also holding true to the guiding principles that we've seen from the TeamWorks team, particularly managing capacity, no material impacts to the capacity of Greenwoods or Northwoods under his proposal, minimizing disruptions. I think the team has done a great job bringing that number down from 25% of students further down, and this is another way in which the school board and TeamWorks can accomplish that goal. Another particularly concerning point is during the working session, we saw, I think I counted 30 different scenarios that they've ran from TeamWorks. Not one of those, not one scenario had our neighborhood staying in Greenwood. It seems awfully coincidental that there wasn't one possibility to model that out or to say, here's an opportunity for your neighborhood to stay. Yet some of our direct geographic neighbors in many of those scenarios remained in Greenwood. So I'm asking the board, Mr. Lesage, TeamWorks, to strongly consider keeping our neighborhood in Greenwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, a request for speakers to consolidate your comments if they're similar to other speakers that have spoken before, or if you know that they're going to speak about the same topic in a similar manner. Please try to consolidate and come up as a group if you can. Thank you. Next is Heidi, and I cannot read the last name, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm just repeating myself. I didn't know we were supposed to consolidate. I'm Heidi Spory. I'm a mom. I have a 4th grader at Greenwood and a 7th grader at West. And we moved here during the pandemic, October 2020, and we felt very welcomed by Dr. G. He made sure that my kids felt very comfortable, that they had a buddy, that they were coming in, that they knew someone. I told, Dr. Anderson, like, I just felt like the grass was so much greener on the other side. We came from Maple Grove, where we just felt like, we were just a number. And I felt like when we came here, we weren't just a number. And when I have been putting in the feedback, like they have said before, not a single one was recognizing our little tiny neighborhood where I think there's only one 4th grader. So it's just the one child would be moved. And, not to get personally, but it's just he's one that it would not go over well with not knowing anyone and going into a new place, just not knowing anyone. And I know every kid is different. And I'm just saying, I just love that Wayzata just really looks at people, at the kids as kids, not just like, here, this is the number. And I just beg that you just look at Reserve at Medina. It's our very tiny neighborhood, and just please don't move us, especially since we're the only ones, and that would be hard to not know anyone. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, next is Vanessa Berenson.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Berenson, and I also have a kindergartner at Greenwood Elementary. I will be brief and just add my 2 cents around the community that we built at Greenwood. We have been there through pre-K and then now in kindergarten. And the community at Greenwood that we've built just in the past year and a half has been amazing. And when talking to my kindergarten about it, it's really upsetting because out of all of his friends from pre-K, he is the only one that has to move. And so, I can only equate that. The last time I've seen him cry this much was when our dog died. And so I just wanted to share that. I fully support the other points, and I won't repeat them, but just the fact that we've already invested time and we've also invested financially in the community at Greenwood, that we hope that you allow us to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, next we have Tim. Is it Genk?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Awesome. So again, another reserve person. I'm just going to make 2 little comments. One, so I'm 715 Lilium Trail in the reserve. I'm also a business owner in the community at 822 Highway 55, also known as McDonald's. So I pay taxes twice in the community. Because our neighborhood is so far away from Greenwood, our children are the only people that would be moved out of the school system. My daughter is in 4th grade. She's a high anxiety child. She would be moved into a different school with none of her friends, and then the year after go to a different middle school where she would not meet up with any of those people. That's hard on her. If we can find any solution that would keep the kids in the school system, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know this is a very, very difficult and thankless task that you guys are working on, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. I know it's not easy, so thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And then next we have Allison Biskupski.
Hi. My name's Allison Biskupski. I have 3 kids that go to Plymouth Creek. I wanted to thank the TeamWorks team for reducing the amount of kids that would be disrupted. I know the first run was like 1,800 kids, which I'm sure the overwhelming feedback was negative on those full stands. I put up a petition together to vote for Plan B. I would like our kids to stay at Plymouth Creek and not be moved. I think the Plan B, other than the reserve neighborhood, I'm sorry, reduces the amount of kids that are affected dramatically from 855 to 555 elementary kid students. It also lowers the amount of middle school students. I believe it's 127 to like 105. I printed off a ginormous amount of studies that talks about the relationship between mental health and school and kids and lowering their dropout rates. I'll leave those over there if you'd want to peruse them. So I'm really here to say I would like you to vote for Plan B, and I appreciate that the district has taken our feedback and is minimizing the disruption for these kids and lowering their risks for mental health issues. So thank you.
Okay, next we have Peter Kim.
Hello, Peter Kim. I'm in the Western Ridge neighborhood. So I'm here because my kids actually used to go to Greenwood, and I personally moved them to Northwoods by moving. So I know how much it impacts a family when they move from one area to another. I'm coming here more from just a pure numbers perspective. I'm a math guy, and so I was looking at the plan, and I was looking at 8B. And one of the things that we struggle with at Northwoods is there's a lot of kids there. My child in 4th grade has 30 kids in our classroom. And that's a lot for a 4th grade class. So I look at 8B, and in 27, 28, right now we're at about 850. They're going to be like 949. So they're going to put 90 more kids in Northwoods. That's a lot of kids getting added to Northwoods. And the biggest place where we're growing in Plymouth is the northwest suburbs, where Northwoods is going to be. I know they're projecting how many people are going to move in that area, but it's still a lot of farmland out there. And so I feel that 8B is only taxing Northwoods more. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more populated. I don't know, one time I think Meadow Ridge, before it got expanded, kids were studying in the hallways. I don't want that to be done at Northwoods. Second is just logistics. I mean, we have a neighborhood that's north of us. Literally, we are the walking distance to Northwoods. We have a neighborhood north of us, which used to be in Meadow Ridge. Now they are slotted for Northwoods, and we are close. We're literally next door. I can see pretty much Northwoods, and I'm going to Meadow Ridge. How is the neighborhood north of me suddenly flipped with me? It doesn't make any sense. Some of the neighborhoods like Ravinia, looks like someone took a donut hole and cut a middle section out of it. It doesn't make sense why that would be done. And so, and lastly, middle school. So 8B right now, from now till 2029, it's looking to be 11 to 12% over capacity, where 8A is around negative 2%. So once again, you're taxing one school way more than others. So I come here from a thing where it doesn't matter about diversity or distance as much. I personally think it's capacity. If you have classrooms that are just overwhelmed with kids, teachers can't teach that. That's impossible. You're putting too much pressure on them. And so I want to finalize. One thing is my neighborhood got shifted after, I don't know, 8 concept. We were all slotted for Northwoods. Now, lastly, without any communication, we are now slotted for Meadow Ridge. So I have a simple solution. I have friends in Greenwood and also Northwoods. Why don't you take Meadow Ridge and send us to Northwoods and take Reserve, similar sized neighborhood, and send them to Greenwood? It is literally a flip-flop. So that's a simple solution, right? We both get what we want, and it's similar sized neighborhood, and we're trying to reduce the amount of kids that are going to Northwoods. So
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. All right, I think we have one more speaker tonight, Ben Masanado.
Hi there, my name is Ben Masnado. I have a kindergartner that goes to Meadow Ridge. He started this year. He's always been a bit of a high anxiety child throughout our daycare days, and he's really adapted really well to the Meadow Ridge community. I live in the Rosemary Woods neighborhood on the far north side of the district, and I'm here simply to advocate for Concept B. Not for just my neighborhood or my child, but because it appears to cause less disruption across the entire attempt here to rezone. That's all I have tonight. I do want to thank everyone because I know there's no perfect scenario here, and it was probably an arduous task. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak and advocate for Concept B.
Thank you, Ben. I believe that's all. Unless I've missed anyone, please let me know. Doesn't look like it. Thank you. All right, moving on. Hold on one second here. All right, moving on to administrative reports and recommendations. beginning with the superintendent report. First, we have District Admin Assistant Amy Geis, who is also the school board election clerk, and she will present a resolution establishing combined polling places. Amy, all yours.
Thank you, School Board Chair Sahoni and Superintendent Anderson. I come to you tonight with the combined polling places for our upcoming school board election being held on November 4th, 2025. Because we hold elections in odd years, we have to establish our own combined polling places. Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11 requires the establishment of polling places for next year to be adopted by December 31st. For elections that are held calendar year 2025 and/or school district elections that are not held on the same day as a statewide election, the school board establishes 5 combined polling places for multiple precincts. The precincts are detailed in the attached resolution before you. The board reaffirms that the polling places will remain open for voting on November 4th from the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. School district residents that reside within the city of Minnetonka, they will vote at their polling places and hours established by the city of Minnetonka. They're the only exception for this coming year. The only one that we had to change was the previously used polling location, Peace Lutheran Church, was sold last year. And so the city no longer uses that location. So we cannot use a location. We have to use locations that our cities and counties already use. Luckily, we, as the Wayzata Public Schools, used our Creekside building as a replacement for the city of Plymouth. So we will now use that as both an absentee voting location for early voting, and on election day, we will use that for precincts 6 and 7. Those postcards will go out to those residents if approved by the school board. The recommended actions are before you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Board members, the recommended action is to adopt the resolution establishing combined polling places for the calendar year 2025 and school district elections not held on the same day as a statewide election, and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. And waive second reading.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Any questions or comments? Hearing none. This will be a roll call vote.
Heidi Cater is absent. Valentina Ayers.
Yes.
Dan Ginestra.
Yes.
Sarah Johansson.
Yes.
Paris Bende.
Yes.
Sheila Pryor. Yes. Milan Sahoni.
Yes. The motion carries. Thank you, Sheila. Next, Dr. Anderson will present several policies for approval.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, attached for review are the following policies and regulations for your consideration. The policies and regulations were reviewed as part of the regular review cycle and using the Minnesota School Board Association model policy where available by district administration and other district stakeholders where necessary. A final review was completed by the policy committee of the board. And as the board's well aware, we have an active policy committee that meets monthly. They review policies on a review cycle and do a lot of preliminary work in preparation of bringing policies to the school board for action. So the policies included in tonight's packet include the following. There are 7 of them. Policy 407, tobacco-free environment. Policy 411, staff hiring. Policy 412, employee background checks. Policy 414, students and employees with communicable diseases and infectious conditions. Policy 417, employee right to know exposure to hazardous substances. Policy 419, policies incorporated by reference. And Policy 420, employee-student relationships. And the recommended action is to approve the above policies as presented in the attachments.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So as Dr. Anderson said, the recommended action is to approve the policies as presented. Is there a motion to approve?
Approve. Yes,
And
second.
And you move, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you waive the reading of the
Yes,
second?
yes.
Okay, and any second?
A second.
Valentina seconds. Thank you. Any discussion? I just wanted to thank everyone on the policy committee. I'm one of them. Valentina is the other member, and Paras as well is the third member. So I want to thank my committee colleagues for a job well done. And it's a lot of work to go through all those. And I also wanted to thank the administrative liaisons that do a lot more work than we do. So thank you so much for that. Again, the recommended action is to approve the policies as presented. This will be a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose nay. Motion carries. Thank you. There are no teaching and learning reports tonight. And then moving on to the finance, again, back to finance and operations reports. We have Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Scott Lesage. He will make the presentations. First, Scott will report the combined financials for the month ending October 31st.
Thank you, Board Chair Sahuni and board members, Dr. Anderson. This one will be very brief, so I feel like you guys have heard enough from me, but this, just to outline, I'll just point out a few things on this document. It's just a quick summary. This is through October 31st, so it's the first 4 fiscal months of the year. If we go to the second page, just some high-level things to point out. The big things we watch are the property taxes and the state aids. That's the lion's share of our revenues. As you can see, they're right on pace with prior years or within what the team is projecting. Same with food service, community ed, and debt service, right in line. One thing to note on food service, if you look there and you go, something looks off with last year, that's because that was the first year where the state was picking up the free lunches. So there's a little bit of lag time between when those counts were submitted and we were getting reimbursed. So it was more in line with how our state aids are paid on the general fund. Next page. I don't know if you can make that a little bit bigger. If not, that's okay. I apologize, it's so small. But one of the big things, as we saw earlier in my presentation on truth and taxation, we are a very staff-oriented organization serving students. And so the big things we pay attention to on this, when you factor in that 73% of our overall expenditures are salary and benefits, we look at that. We're spot on with salaries with prior years. Benefits, we're right actually where we expected to be because we did make an accounting change or an adjustment from how things were done in prior years. And so we are right in line with that. I also like to thank Director Draskovich, who's sitting back there, and then also Dave Lutz and the HR team, because they work very closely together because we have a huge number of staff, and so they track that really well together. So thank you for that. And also Jen Welk, because she handles the special education side, which I alluded to, is north of $23 million. So other things to point out, so purchase services can vary significantly, as I mentioned earlier. In a previous presentation, that's where our transportation is paid, and that is also where some of the construction fees are paid out of, along with utility bills. Transportation can have big fluctuations from month to month. It depends on when we're billed. We might have a couple months where we aren't billed, and then we'll get 2 bills at once. So that can vary. Supplies and materials is up from previous years. We just saw more of a increased purchase at the beginning of the year. We expect that to kind of level out as time goes. Capital expenditures, this includes a variety of things, but includes a lot of the construction inside of that. And so with the fiscal year being June 30th and with projects being done over the summertime and then minimally over during the year, we're closing out some of those pay apps at this time. Food service fund, just pointing out, you can see they're right in line with expectation. Community service, this can vary as well depending on when the programming is, because they do have a lot of hourly staff in there. And then debt service fund is right in line with where expectation would be. Last page. If you look, and this is as of October 31st, the district had roughly $62 million sitting in the bank. A big portion of that is our property tax levy. That comes in the spring. We get 2 payments in the spring, and then we get 2 payments in the fall. So as soon as those dollars come in, our state aids basically turn off because the state is aware of when those property tax dollars come in. And so during that time, we don't get state aid. There's payments that we don't. So, And that is it. Any questions?
Thank you, Scott. Any questions, board colleagues? Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I want to thank the Finance Committee. Sarah Johansson and Paras, I think, Paras and Dan, you're on the committees. Thank you for all your hard work as well. Okay, next item, Scott will request the board for its fiscal year 2024 audit approval. Scott, again.
All right, thank you very much. Before I get started, I just want to point out a few people sitting in here tonight. David Draskovich, our Director of Finance, sitting back there in the gray jacket that just looked like he looked behind him. It's you, David. And then our Finance and Student Accounting Manager, Jen Welk. They are big parts of the audit, and I'd also like to thank people that aren't here tonight, Jack Stearns, Andrew Bauman, Carrie Lynch, and I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but it's a true team effort. This was the first year that I was in the finance and operations executive role. I've always run audits, so it was very comforting to have David run that this year. He has a fantastic team. The audit went smoother than it ever has, as you guys heard from our audit manager. I don't know if I should be worried about that because this is the first year I wasn't part of the day-to-day on that, but I'll just take it as it was really good hiring by me. So, but great job, you guys. So thank you for that. As a reminder to the board, we did receive a thorough presentation from Jackie Hegel, our manager at MMKR, at the last board work session on November 25th. I'll also note that the Finance Committee of the board has also discussed and reviewed this twice. Last Friday, we went over it as a Finance Committee, and then we also reviewed this the Friday prior to the work session. So I've bugged them quite a bit on this, so thank you very much for your Friday morning. So I've really appreciated that. So the district's annual audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 has been completed by the audit firm MMKR. So the following reports have been issued: the comprehensive annual audit financial report ending June 30th, 2024, the management report, special purpose reports on single audit internal controls and compliance with laws and regulations. And then here, a portion of the general fund balance is assigned for specific purposes and is approved by the school board on an annual basis. There's a list of them for you up on the screen, and that was in the board packet for your review. Again, the financial statements were provided to the board via board book, and pending your approval tonight, will go on the district website tomorrow. So with that, I would open it up to any questions for me.
Thank you, Scott. Colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Further, approve the June 30th, 2024 assigned fund balance in the amount of $8,643,744 to be used for the specific purposes noted in the attachment. Is there a motion?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Any questions or comments, Scott? Sarah?
I just want to say a huge thanks. Scott listed off our amazing finance team, and then I'm going to add a thank you to Scott, right? And so to David and to Jen and to Scott and Andrew and Jack and Carrie, this is a tremendous lift that I feel like you're working on all year long. It's a huge lift in for the auditors, and they tell us every year that we do a good audit. At least every year for the last 11 years, they've told us it's the best. If this is the best of the best, it's because we have the best of the best team. So thank you so much for your diligence and your comprehensive look, and it really allows us as citizens of the community to have a high level of trust and confidence in the work of this district. So thank you.
Yes, Sheila, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, just a reminder for anybody who didn't see the audit report, there were no issues. So thank you, Scott, for all your hard work.
Okay, if there are no other comments, again, the recommended action is to approve the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, and then further approve the June 30th, 2024 assigned fund balance in the amount of $8,643,744 to be used for the specific purposes noted in the attachment. This is a roll call vote. So.
Sheila Pryor, yes. Heidi Cater is absent. Valentina Ayers,
Yes.
Dan Ginestra,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Paris Bende,
Yes.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right, finally, Scott will ask the board to approve the 2024 payable 2025 levy certification. One more item for you, Scott. Thank you.
All right, perfect. This should be the last time that you have
Yes.
to hear from me. So I want to apologize to everybody in the audience. I know that my presentations are exhilarating. I'm sure you'll go back and watch them later. They'll be on YouTube and on the district website, but this will be brief. So again, this is the final item. This is related to the presentation that we did earlier this evening, but the district administration recommends certification of the 2024 payable 2025 property tax levy in the amount of $96,322,942.99. As presented earlier, this amount represents 3.9 million or 4.26 increase from the payable 2024 levy, while the district's property tax base has grown by approximately 2.73%. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we saw significant growth in the prior years before that. So the levy amounts by fund were presented earlier and are listed on the agenda sheet for each of the board members. So with that, the administration is asking the board to approve the 2024 payable 2025 tax levy.
Thank you, Scott. Colleagues, the recommended action is to approve and certify the maximum allowable levy amount of $96,322,942.99 and authorize the board clerk to sign the attached final 2024 payable 2025 levy for Independent School District 284. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion?
I would like to.
Yes, please. Yeah, Valentina.
I know that what I'm going to say, it's not going to be popular, but at the same time, I have a hard time looking at numbers and thinking and hearing what I heard from Morris Leatherman Company, that 90% of Minnesotans are feeling the effect of this economy. And when we just approved the contracts of free groups with pay raise, and then we are also obviously going to be talking about calendar where for several days kids need to be at home while it's counted as a contact day. I have a hard time taking it because to be honest, at a certain point, we need to make some adjustment and maybe some consideration, because public, maybe not maybe not many or not all of you, I'm happy for you, but many Minnesotans are feeling this economy. And looks like our taxes are only going up. For some reason, they never go down. And I would like us also to, and when we are getting money from state, and the state had quite a bit of money to deal with, maybe we should come to state and talk to state that they need to allocate money to education, not to spend money on something else, because we paid obviously enough taxes to state. And would be good idea to go to legislature and talk that schools need money, not other projects which the state is choosing. Thank you.
Any other comments, discussion? Okay, hearing none. So the recommended action again is to approve and certify the maximum allowable levy amount of $96,322,942.99 and authorize the board clerk to sign the attached final 2024 payable 2025 levy for Independent School District 2084. This is a roll call vote again.
Sheila Pryor, yes. Heidi Cater is absent. Valentina Ayers,
No.
Dan Ginestra,
Yes.
Sarah Johansson,
Yes.
Paris Bende,
Yes.
Milan Sahoni.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, as always, Scott, for the heavy lift with our district finances.
Thank you.
I won't ask you to speak again tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Finally, we have the Human Resource Services report presented by Executive Director Stacy Voss. Stacy has one item for board approval, which is the 2025-26 and 2026-27 school calendars.
Good evening, Chair Salhoni and members of the board. I'm pleased to share with you the recommended 25-26 and 26-27 calendars. This year, we worked hard to solicit more staff input by sharing calendar proposals with all building principals. Building principals were then tasked with sharing the calendar options to their built teams or sharing this information at a staff meeting. This again was done in an effort to give more staff the opportunity to provide input. And it was also in response to the district survey results in which teachers shared that there were too many meetings. Unique challenges to the 25-26 calendar was winter break and the late date of Labor Day for the 26-27 calendar. The proposed calendar dates were shared with you at the work session and again in your board agenda. And I would ask that you approve the recommended action before you this evening.
Thank you, Stacy. Board colleagues, the recommended action is to approve the proposed 2025-26 and 2026-27 school calendars. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paras, and thank you, Dan. Is there a discussion? Valentina, yeah.
I will be talking about at-home learning, now named PD Learning Days. Our school exists for students' education. Keeping them away from schools for 2 days, older students for 3 days, doesn't make sense, especially when these students lost so much in learning opportunities during COVID. Speaking from personal experience, there is little or no learning happening on those days at home. We are talking about needing to be more transparent with our community, but last time we got a feedback from parents was 2 years ago, and parents were not happy about these days. I would be more comfortable with voting if I knew that parents had a chance to weigh into that and agree to go with proposal. Teachers need professional development days. Nobody argues about that. But in the past, you had different solutions, which kept both parts, parents and teachers, happy. I supported professional days because of a Read Act initiative and seeing myself how students grow when they are taught how to read based on science of reading this year. That's very valuable and helps students to succeed. I also don't see the reason to approve a calendar for 2 years. Once again, I want our community to be able to weigh into the decision, not to lock them out from the opportunity for 2 years. Lastly, I don't feel comfortable knowing that these 2 free days counted as a contact days, even though there is no contact whatsoever. This practice have great effect on low-income families. Families where blue-collar workers have to go to work, who don't have money to pay to tutors in order for their kids would catch up with their peers. We just asked for 4.3% tax levy increase while simultaneously asking them to do more. The August survey ran by the Morris Leverman Company showed that 90% of Minnesotans feel the pain from this economy. We should abandon this practice of at-home learning days. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Anyone else? Comment, discussion? Okay, the recommended action again is to approve the proposed 2025-26 and 2026-27 school calendars. All in favor say aye.
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 Oppose nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, there is no other board action tonight. And then the final item on the agenda is board reports. This section of the agenda provides an opportunity for board members to update school board members on school board related work or to make announcements of interest to the public. Today we have Director Dan Ginestra with a report. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Wayzata's representative to the Intermediate School District 287 School Board, I've been fortunate to oversee the district from a governance perspective, working with administration and my board colleagues to affirm 287's reason for establishment and mission statement. Intermediate School District 287 was established in 1969 to be the leading provider of innovative specialized services, ensuring that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students. On December 3rd, board representatives of Brooklyn Center, St. Louis Park, Mount Westonka, and Wayzata Public Schools joined District 287 leaders on a visit to the Hennepin Technical College in Eden Prairie. State Representative Ned Carroll joined us as a special guest. Here, we toured Pathways and Gateways programming, which offer technical and post-secondary readiness coursework, respectively. This included a certified nursing assistance class and a course on computer design and construction. We then visited a transition classroom where we saw students in a cooking for independent living class. In these settings, we were fortunate to hear from student speakers who presented the merits and virtues of 287 programming, as well as their future plans. It was a wonderful visit. Thank you to District 287 Superintendent Marcy Dowd and her team for making our time at Hennepin Technical College possible. And now, I would like to give a year in review update for Intermediate School District 287 and its board. The past year has been full of activity, from the creation of our iTrack teacher apprenticeship program and further student and staff development to robust discussions at the board table around district policy. We have been fortunate to tackle the stereotypes and misconceptions many have toward becoming a teacher by creating opportunities for apprenticeship and mentorship at all levels. We have been able to fast-track hirings and promotions by continuing to develop talent among our staff. We have continued our efforts to enhance programming for students, all while seeing results that are both measurable and impressive. Our policy conversations at the board table have been enlightening and serve to remind all of us that education is a process both meticulous and sophisticated. Thank you to the staff of District 287 for all you do. Thank you to our team here at Wayzata for your partnership and support of the intermediate. Thank you to my predecessor, Board Treasurer Sarah Johansson, for onboarding and preparing me for what to expect on the 287 board. And thank you to the students for continuing to be our inspiration. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Dan on ISD 287? Okay, thank you so much. Our next board work session will be the organizational work session on Monday, December 16th at 4 p.m. This concludes the Wayzata Public Schools regular board meeting. I just want to take a minute to thank everyone. I was elected for 1 year as chair of the board earlier this year in January. This is my last regular meeting as board chair for the year. It has been an invaluable experience, and I want to thank my colleagues, each one of them, for the trust placed in me. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your commitment, insights, and the dedication you bring to our mission. It's truly a privilege to work alongside such a talented and passionate group. Your contributions have been invaluable, and our successes are a direct result of your hard work and vision. As we look to the future, I'm excited by what we can accomplish together as a board. Thank you also to the administration for your continued dedication, collaboration, and trust. Together, we will continue to make a meaningful impact in the lives of our largest stakeholder, the students. Happy holidays and a very safe and healthy new year to all of you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The time is now 9:13. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, December 9th, 2024 is adjourned.